Hogsty.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Hogsty. This is Alex, your host. I'm here with Steve and Jamal as we get started with our off-season program here on the show, and we're going to start breaking down each position group. But before we get into that and all the news coming out of Washington these days, let's talk about our sponsor. Our sponsor is Symbol, the stock market for sports, where you buy and trade sports teams like stocks, and you earn cash payouts when they win. Symbol is blending that sport market and sports gambling and stock market, offers you a new way to invest and profit on your favorite teams without the high fees and the losses that come with normal gambling. I signed up using our passcode. You guys know about that. The passcode is Hogsty, and you get a $10 bonus when you sign up with that passcode. If you're a homer like me, you buy the football team, you buy the baseball team here in DC, you buy the basketball team in DC, you just keep going for those home teams. If you're like Steve and you want to make money off this, you go and find some underdogs maybe who you think are going to have a good season.
You got to ignore your bias and go for the money, man.
I agree. Except for one team, don't buy the Cowboys. If you buy the Cowboys, I'm going to stab you through the internet. You know.
And we mean that in a hypothetical sense only.
Oh no, I was directing that at you, Steve.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, fine. As long as we're not,
No.
threatening our.
I'm saying, if you buy the Cowboys, I don't know if I could stomach.
I could not do that. I would rather just abstain than ever buy the Cowboys.
Right.
That's crazy. So you know what I'm saying? Clearly, the decision to make money ends up compromising your ideals. Like, do you want the Cowboys to win, or you know what I'm saying? At the cost you making money, or you know what I'm saying? If I want to make some money, and I think the Cowboys gonna do something, I am putting money on the Cowboys. I am investing in the Cowboys.
Can't do it. All right, guys, go to www.simbull.app, put in our passcode Hogsty, and go and make some money and have some fun. And that is the ad. And now let us get into the show, guys. How you doing, Steve? How you doing, Jamal?
Doing all right, man. It's glad to see some real football again. I'm glad to see an off-season program. Last
back to normal.
Last year was just the worst in terms of off-season coverage for obvious reasons. Yeah. And so I'm glad to see mini camps and OTAs and all that stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Rookie camp started this weekend. It's only a weekend long, right? It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And there's only 16 players there, so it's not a huge event.
Yeah. Very small group this year, because one rookie got COVID, and so then they panicked, I guess, is something I heard.
That's a safe way to say it. They panicked.
Yeah. The only interesting story that came out, and Steve and I were talking about this before you hopped on, Jamal. Steven Montez, who you would think would be allowed to be in rookie camp because he's been on the practice squad all year and he's only in his second season or whatever, he wasn't allowed to participate because I guess he was active for too many games, and so they had to go and find an emergency quarterback to be the quarterback for this camp, and they grabbed Jordan Ta'amu, who was with the XFL in 2020. And I don't think he's played it. He didn't play anywhere last year, I don't believe. So,
I don't think so.
He was the starting quarterback for the St. Louis Battlehawks before this.
I didn't care enough to figure this out. You know, I didn't want to spend too many brain cells. Look, because Montez was active, I think, for week 17 and then the playoff game last year. You have to have 3 games to get a good year that counts towards retirement and counts for contract purposes towards your reaching the unrestricted free agent level. And Montez did not make that, so I don't understand why he was not eligible to go to rookie camp, and it's probably something buried in the CBA, but again, it was only mini camp, and I really didn't feel like figuring it out.
Yeah. There's probably some weird thing that says if you play the Super Bowl champions, it counts as a 2-game thing in the playoffs or some random vague
second
rule.
Second right and straight on till morning. I mean, who knows? But, and as far as Ta'amu goes, I mean, I remember him. He's got a strong arm. He was inconsistent in college. He's probably not going to replace Montez. This was probably just a 1 week thing and weekend thing, and we'll never hear from him.
Yeah, they gave him some weekend beer money, is my thought. There have been some clips. I'm sure, Jamal, you're on Twitter, so you've probably seen some of these clips that came out from camp. I don't know if anything stood out to you right away.
Not so. That's the thing, like, because it started Friday. We're recording this on Saturday. I wasn't on Twitter that much yesterday. I popped in for like a second, and I saw like probably 75 seconds of a video from Lake Lewis, who was there recording the tight ends. And I think it was Bates and Reyes in the video that I seen. I wasn't able to get much from it, but also I will say this. Just to contribute to this conversation, right? I think it's going to be very fun. I don't care what anybody says. Like, we missed a whole year of football, right? In terms of the offseason and practices. It's going to be very fun to see. Matter of fact, I did see it yesterday. It's going to be very fun to see so many analysts, quote-unquote analysts, talking about how bad a player looks in the practice videos that we see this offseason. Like, I seen somebody... when what's his name, Reyes caught a pass, I didn't even see the full video when I saw the comment, but apparently he fell after he made a catch. He was running the flag route. And for those, because I have to explain this just in case, my actual flag football terms get confused with the pro term. But a flag route is like an inverted post. Like, you're not running the post the traditional way. You're running it towards the sideline. And that's all he ran. It wasn't a corner route or anything. But when I saw it, and then I looked at the comment, you see, it was like two people talking about how sloppy the route was and how he didn't sink his hips and things like that. And I'm like, sometimes, the route doesn't call for that. It can be a very simple route. And sometimes people try a little bit too hard for a 10-second clip. And that's kind of the part I missed. It will grow old quickly, but I missed it. That's it. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is sort of the problem with Twitter as a general construct, not just related to game film and practice film, is that it's sort of a microcosm of society. But be that as it may, I think Sammis Reyes needs all the work he can get. He's an interesting prospect, fan favorite, athletic profile, created by God himself. But the man has never played football before. Friday was day one of his football career.
His very first practice ever.
Yeah, so I think you need to be, the fans out there who are listening to this need to be cautious. Root for him all you want, clearly, but don't raise the expectations so high just because he's got fabulous numbers. He's going to take a long time to really get there, particularly when you've got some guys who can play ahead of you. Logan Thomas can play. John Bates can play. It may be that Sammis Reyes needs to sit on the practice squad for a year or 2 years even.
It might be that. Now, there were some interesting stories that came out about him this week pertaining to rookie camp, how he and his girlfriend have been, she's been just, throwing things at him at home, and he has to, draw them on a chalkboard at any given time. She'll throw play calls at him. Mm-hmm. You hear these stories of him doing things like that to try and, get up to speed, which are, feel good stories.
We all thought Terrell Pryor worked hard, too.
Yeah, well,
we saw the workout.
I remember Terrell Pryor just stood there at the jugs machine all day, every day. That's what he did.
I put it this way:
that might not be a bad idea for Reyes either, considering he's never caught a pass.
Yeah, I put it this way: no, it's good. I appreciate his creativity in that sense. I don't know, of course, there's similar stories out there with all types of pros with their girlfriends helping them out. But at the end of the day, trying to find a way to still keep your memory fresh. Your memory fresh and able to remember stuff in your plays. That's just I admire his creativity and trying to stay on top of his game. Learning a whole new sport for the very first time. So. We'll see where it takes them. I mean, that is part of the game is understanding your playbook. Because if you can't even know your plays, you ain't gonna be able to get on the field to learn the position anyway. So we'll see where it takes him.
He's a fun guy to root for. He's clearly a hard worker. I'm all for him. All my point was I just want fans to have reasonable expectations so people are not disappointed when you don't see him out there as the starting tight end on day one.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone should be expecting him to be a starting tight end. He's a depth guy,
The only way he's starting for us is if he gets in those preseason games and he is dominant. Like if he dominates every single preseason game, that's the only way you'll see him as a starter. Outside of that again, that's the expectation you shouldn't have going into the preseason games. But if he shows that in the preseason games, that's the only way he'll be a starter. Outside of that, he got a lot to learn.
Well, I mean, keep in mind, we did draft another tight end, Bates, who had a lot of positive press coming out so far with this rookie camp. I've heard good things about him as well. I know he's not the athletically gifted freak of nature like Reyes is, but Chris Cooley was raving about him earlier this week, and you saw some highlight, or not highlights, but you saw some clips of him catching passes too. The one thing I found very funny watching these clips, how big some of these guys are. Because I think Rick Snyder said there's at least 3 guys who are 6'6", 6'7" at camp, and then how little Jarrett Patterson looks next to them.
Jarrett Patterson measured out at 5'6.5".
Yeah,
they list him at 5'8". He's not 5'8". He's 5. You could call him 5'7" and be honest about it. But
if he's got the cleats on and the helmet, that adds 2 inches.
Dang, that's real. That's really a Darren Sproles mode right there. Except for minus the speed, but oh my goodness. I mean, that's kind of crazy.
Go look at the clip of him catching passes. You can tell he's small, just watching him one-on-one.
How did he look? How did he look to you in those clips? Break it down, analyst. Tell me everything good and bad about Patterson in those 60 seconds of clips.
You can't really. It's not like he's making moves against guys. That's the thing. You're just watching him run a simple out route. But I will say he turns up field quickly. I don't think, like you said, he's not Sproles fast. But, I think if you watch him, he's a good compact runner. He can be shifty, I think. Well, we'll see where he goes. I mean, you guys know I'm desperate for him to find a third running back to replace Barber.
Not just you.
Yeah, I know.
All of us have been like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a fan of Patterson.
And by the way, I mean, people forget that Lamar Miller's on the roster. He could end up being a better version of Peyton Barber. He didn't get any active roster time last year, but he's still around. So he could possibly be a Barber replacement.
And he was at one point a featured running back.
He was a good running back at one point in time.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. He's coming off of, an ACL from 2 years ago or something like that?
It was some type of injury. The good thing about the best thing that we'll see very soon that a lot of people don't take into account as well is when the mini camps actually get started with the current players on the roster and training camp. A lot of these rookies, they're going to get baptized. A lot of these rookies are going to get baptized, and that'll kind of shake the table in terms of where people thought these rookies were at in terms of like coming into the NFL, and then whether it's good or bad. But some of these rookies are going to get baptized, and honestly, I think one of the people on top of my list is Reyes, and maybe even John Bates for that matter. But these rookies are going to get baptized.
By the way, since we're talking about tight ends, before I forget, this has nothing to do with Washington, but I'm glad to see Tim Tebow get another shot, or get a shot at tight end, something he should have done years ago. I liked Tebow. I don't think he's got much of a chance to make a roster, but he's a good guy. I think the media treated him and the fans treated him horribly because of his Christian faith. And while I don't think he's got a good, realistic, viable shot to be on an active roster, I'm glad to see him get a shot. So,
while we on the Tebow subject, I actually think that I think for the reasons you felt that the fans and media hated him is also the reason why he was a polarizing player is because a lot of people did like him too. And I had no issues with Tebow. I think one of the things that he made a mistake in Because obviously we're talking 9 years later, right, Steve? I think the issue that he
Yes.
made a mistake in was not converting when the suggestion was initially made. You wasted 9 years of your potential career
Absolutely.
when you could have just converted when they said, bro, you might need to convert to tight end and give it a shot. And he said he wanted to be a quarterback. And what did that do? That ended up forcing him to change careers, and he went to baseball for a couple years. That didn't work out fully to where he wanted to be. And now he became, I think it was SEC analyst for ESPN. So
Yes.
now he's back. They gave him a off-season roster spot, at least for training camp, and we'll see where that takes him. But he should have been converted, man. You wasted 9 years doing other things. When I mean, it's your choice. You back in the league, you got a shot, but like you could have been in your prime, the prime athletic prime, playing tight end. But now you're what, 34, 35, trying to do something.
You're so right. I mean, it didn't take a genius to see that Tim Tebow did not have an NFL quality arm in terms of accuracy. He was just he should have converted. You know, a lot of people were telling him that. People in the media were screaming that.
People were telling him that before he got drafted, though, and he was ignoring it.
And he can make a choice for his life to,
Sure.
pursue quarterback if he wants. But if he wanted an NFL career, it was always supposed to be. It always should have been tight end. It's probably too late for him now. But I'm glad to see him get a shot, and I respect him as a person. So it's good to see. Even though, again, although if you're going to go to a team as a tight end long shot, Jacksonville's probably the place to do it.
I agree.
They don't have.
He's reuniting with his college coach.
Well, that and their tight end room is pretty sparse. Is the other thing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, tight end right now throughout the league is actually fairly sparse. If you really break down the whole league these days, it's not what it was maybe a decade ago, where there were a bunch of really good tight ends out there.
there's still a couple guys. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not. It used to be every team had one high-end tight end. It felt like, now there's a lot of average out there.
I didn't mean to distract us too much from.
No. Well, I mean, I don't know if there's the problem with rookie camp. There's not a whole lot that you can glean out of it. The beat reporters. I know Rick Snyder said that he was impressed by St. Juste or whatever, the big cornerback, said he is surprisingly fluid as a runner. I saw some good things about Davis, but it's mostly the clips you're seeing are all going to be offense.
Yeah, skill positions.
Skill positions. Like what's going to excite you watching?
That's the one that gets the most impressions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I know.
And all them retweets and all them likes and all them comments. They gonna be focusing on those guys.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm, so,
but, I mean, look, there's only so much you can get out of a rookie camp. Obviously,
right?
They had Jordan Tamu as a quarterback, for goodness sakes. I mean, unless you're there and you have coaching expertise, which we don't, which none of the beat writers do. I think it's really hard to get a good sense at this point in time about what players are going to be players and who are, who isn't. So I just take it for what you will, and don't read too much into it. That's my advice.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I think that certainly some beat writers who've been there a long time probably have little bits of insight of, like I know Rick Snyder's always big. Who's the first person you see out? That's always been his thing. Like who's the first person out, stretching, doing the little things. That's how he thinks this guy's gonna work out, but like you said, he's not a coach, and he'll admit he doesn't know what Ron Rivera knows.
Yeah, I will never forget because y'all brought this up, and it kind of just rained on me that like a couple years ago I went to the rookie minicamp for us, and there was a receiver who had a pretty famous dad, and he played for the Eagles. His dad played for the Eagles. I'm trying to remember his last name. Papali.
Vince Papali.
Yeah. So
he's Mr. the Notre
Invincible.
Dame
Mr.
Invincible.
And
yeah, it was.
Yep. So, and I talked to him, the receiver, because he had a really good camp. Like he had one really good practice. He looked really good, and I made a whole story about it, just talking about his potential and what he can do for the league. I made it I did it in a way where I didn't know what he was going to do with Washington and his tryout, but at the same time, like how he looked and how it can like help him in the league. But the point that I'm making is, to you all's point, I have not heard anything about that man since the year I went to that practice. I don't even know if he's in the league. And
I don't think.
I guarantee you he's probably
exactly.
not.
and that's kind of where I was getting at. Is like, it's not much you can do with these rookie mini camps. Some of these guys are tryouts. Some of these guys are low end, quote unquote low end, not like in a disrespectful term, but low end players where it's like they're just hoping to make the practice squad. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what type of story you make during rookie mini camps. Obviously, it's insightful and it helps people who are invested in a player or interested in a player. Mm-hmm. But some of these guys, they're just not going to make it, and that's just the harsh reality of it. So as much as you want to give some attention to a rookie mini camp, it's just not. It's not there.
Well, yeah. I mean, Vince Papali isn't going against Kendall Fuller. He's going against some undrafted free agent from Colorado,
right.
or whatever. I mean, I'm making that up, but
yeah.
I think we're all saying the same thing. It's fun to watch, but don't get too excited about it. That's the point.
Oh, by the way, I Googled him. Vinnie Papali, his son, is currently, it looks like, with the Montreal Alouettes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So I was getting him mixed up with the guy from the movie about the Notre Dame player, Rudy. I was getting Vince Papali mixed up with Rudy.
Oh,
yeah.
Rudy Papali. That would be a hell of a name, man.
It's kind of the same sort of story. They're both way too short, unathletic.
Right. No, you're right. It's a very similar kind of thing. Well, I don't think there's much else we can say about rookie minicamp.
No,
not really.
Why don't we move on to the two big moves that the football team made this week? First, they brought in Charles Leno, left tackle, which, by my count, gives them... I just did this in my head this morning. There are at least 7 guys now on this roster who have extensive playing time starting experience on the O-line, and decent enough players. Maybe not elite, but decent. And then you got a couple rookies, and they are crazy deep on O-line, is my point.
There's a lot of linemen in camp right now.
Yeah. But it's like good depth.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Leno, solid pro, can come in and at least be a league average starter.
Right.
I think he's a hedge against the youth of Sam Cosmi,
sure,
the youth and injury status of Sadiq Charles, and a hedge against everything that is Jerron Christian. Nice guy, probably not a starter in the NFL. And so they really needed someone who could come in right now, today, and be a starter or a swing tackle or something, because Cornelius Lucas is there too. One of them, somebody's going to get injured. And so I think Leno was a great depth move for the offensive line. We're not bringing in, the second coming of Joe Jacoby or anything like that, but it's a solid depth move, and they did need it. So
but to me, this puts them 3 deep at left tackle, or not left tackle, at offensive tackle, easy. And, I think they're the same way now at guard, too. Like, you look at what they've done this offseason, that's very good depth on the line.
17 offensive linemen in camp and on the roster right now.
That's a big
That's a lot.
group.
Look, good luck to them trying to decipher who's going to be the final 8 or 9. I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know where it's going to take them. I think that's a good step, because obviously in the past we've had we top heavy. We didn't really have options in terms of versatility. The best versatility we had, and probably I would say in the past decade, was Ty Nsekhe, who can play, who was the ultimate swing tackle and could hold it down in case Trent Williams got hurt, or in some cases he got suspended. Ty Nsekhe held it down. What's his name? Lucas last year was the next swing tackle that we had. Well, Jerron Christian technically was, but we found out pretty early that he couldn't play, and he still struggles to this day. And then Cornelius Lucas was the next best option that we had. But now we're 4 deep at at tackle in terms of the options. And then you got interior line where you got Schweitzer, Flowers, Sheriff, somebody else that I'm missing.
Technically, Wes Martin's still there, and he put up a video apparently where he was lifting 760 something pounds.
That was Schweitzer.
No,
well,
that's Wes Martin.
A couple practice. There's also some practice squad guys. Bo Benchwall is there. He's interior lineman. Tyler Larson's a backup, like I guess a third string center maybe. Keith Ismail from last year.
Yeah, Ismail. That's the person I was thinking
he was.
Of, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean he was maybe more of a center, but he's played guard too. I don't know if it's necessarily set in stone where he plays. So there's a lot of decisions to be made on this offensive line. I think this year more than many years. I'll tell you what. I think the guy who's in trouble is Christian. He was drafted by another. I mean, he hadn't showed much, and he was drafted by the previous regime. I think that dude needs to ball out, or he's going to not be here.
Well, I think odds are not in his favor at this point. Especially, they picked up Cosme, and you got to assume they want him to be the starter someday. You
don't draft a guy in the second round to not start. The other guy is David Sharp's around. I think he might have started a game or two for us last year, if I recall.
I think he did start a game, yeah.
He's hanging around. I mean, there is a lot of competition. It's going to be fun to watch to see who.
I think
to see who makes it.
I agree. I think some of these guys end up getting cut, like after, if not before, after the first preseason game. It's only 3, and you got so many options. You gotta get the guys that you really like. You gotta get them some playing time before that regular season starts. And do you have that much time to really invest into the? If we got 17, you got that much time to invest into the bottom 12. I mean, excuse me, not the bottom 12, but the bottom 5 or 6 offensive linemen. I'm not sure you do. When you got other people to really make sure that they get the work that they need before the regular season starts. So some of these guys may not even make it, even if not before the first game, after the first game. It's probably a wrap for them.
I don't know what the logistics are of the cuts this year. I'm assuming that there's only one mandatory cut after Game 3, I guess.
Yeah.
By the way, the
part they were. It used to be they have to cut every week, right? But they moved away from that.
There were 2 cuts. One was after week 2, and the other one was after week 4. But last year, I think, was the first year where we only had the 1 cut. By the way, the preseason schedule, for those who haven't seen it, is New England, at New England, Cincinnati, and Ravens, both at home. That's the preseason schedule.
We have so much to talk about. I didn't even put the schedule on our list today.
Yeah, we'll have to do it another day.
Which I don't mind, because I think people make way too much about the schedule.
It's too early,
Yeah. So, okay, we talked Leno. The other signing, of course, Bobby Mccain, safety from Miami, 29 years old. Good signing. Maybe not, he's not a world beater, but we desperately need help at safety. That's the one weak link on this defense still.
I love this signing.
Yeah.
This dude, I watched, by the way, I highly recommend, there's a guy named Muff Baldwin who I believe played at Alabama, who's a football analyst. He goes by Top Billin, Billin, on YouTube. He did a good breakdown of McCain. I think McCain, first of all, he's very versatile. He's played literally everywhere, basically, in the defensive backfield. But I think this is your cover 3 free safety, starting free safety right here. He's got good instincts. Mm-hmm. He can move. His 40 time isn't all that great, but he's got better game speed. He's a hard hitter, good tackler. I think it's an outstanding signing. Here, and I think the Troy Apkes and DeShazer Everetts of the world need to be worried.
Now, what does it do for you all in y'all's head that you're talking about a guy getting a 1-year deal here, specifically for Bobby McCain? Because in our perspective, like Steve, you said, it's a really good hire or signing, and forecasting a little bit. I think that's the proper term for this. You're going to need somebody down the road, too. Like, this is a 1-year deal. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if he plays well, he'll get big money somewhere. Who knows if it's here? But obviously, if he plays good, he'll get money elsewhere, too. The reason why I'm bringing this up is, even though he's a good player, you're asking for 1 year in a year where we're not necessarily sure what this quarterback situation is going to do in terms of how far we can go in a season, like how far we can make it in the playoffs and things like that. So we've had a safety issue for a long time, and that's where I'm kind of getting at this. You can have one of the best defensive seasons we've had in a long time, right? But what does that do like for the future? I don't know. That's just me when I say like we got him for a 1-year deal. We haven't had him for a long term, so it's kind of like we're kind of in a situation where we can possibly lose him again. Now we're back in the find a safety mode, where we're giving up possibly big plays down the line again because we don't have a safety to monitor the deep center of the field and stuff like that. That's kind of where my head was at when I saw a 1-year deal.
Well, he's 29, right? So let's,
No, 20. Oh, yeah, he'll be 29 when the season starts. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I mean, so, I don't necessarily want to get in the business of signing long-term deals on guys over 30, so maybe... Look, I didn't really go back and recheck the safety market, but there might have been 1 or 2 guys we could have signed early in the season that would have been worthwhile for a long-term deal.
He's not 29. He was born August 18th, 1993.
No,
I thought I heard...
So he'll be... If he's not 27, matter of fact, I have the article up right here.
He's 27 right now.
Okay, yeah, I'm about to say his birthday is right before the season. So if he wasn't 27,
yes, he will be.
28 when the season starts.
Before the season starts. Yeah.
Okay, my mistake. He's 28. But my point still being, I don't know if I want to get in a long-term contract with guys who after 30.
Long-term can be.
What's a long-term contract?
Like 3 years though.
5 years.
I'm not talking about. Yeah.
Okay, but even if you sign a 5-year contract, it doesn't mean you're married to this guy. There's almost no NFL contract beyond a stupid quarterback contract in which the team is committed more than 2 years.
Yeah, that's true. But my point is, I think this is a prove-it deal for this guy. It's going to be mutually beneficial for both sides, kind of like the KPL contract last year.
He may have wanted a 1-year deal.
Yeah. I mean, same with Leno. I'm sure that these guys realize we drafted a safety this year who they are high on. We've drafted a left tackle who they are high on. The hope is those guys take over at some point, not that they're backups for their whole career, right?
I mean, the safety was a 5th-round pick.
Yeah.
I think he's more of a strong safety. I don't think he's a true single-high cover 3 free safety. Forrest, I'm talking about, Derek Forrest.
Right.
So I don't know if they did draft a free safety, a true cover 3 free safety, or cover 1 free safety.
And that's where I'm getting at. Like we're in a situation where we know we've seen it 1,000 times to know better. When you see a 1-year deal for any player, odds are, I mean, it could either be a prove-it deal. It could either be somebody who wanted a 1-year deal because they want that option to see the market again, their market again the next year. Like this is not. He's not thinking long term when he signs in Washington. He's thinking, this is a good situation for me to get my numbers and my production out there, and then I can see what I have in the market. And that's kind of where, like, that's where my head is at when I say it. Now, obviously, it looks good, like to have the defense look this good for 1 year, but this isn't supposed to be a 1-year thing in terms of what we're building here. This is supposed to be sustainable. And I want to emphasize before my thoughts are getting, I don't want to misconstrue anybody or confuse anybody. I am 100% for this signing. I like the way that this team is building. This is me thinking in a long-term perspective. I don't know what this is going to do because we know these 1-year deals are not meant for players to say, all right, I want to come back to Washington. They're looking out for their money because obviously he's 27. Mm-hmm. He'll be 28 next year. He still has opportunity to get good money elsewhere.
Well, it's like the perfect example what you're talking about is Eric Flowers. Well, liked here, turned his career around, needed a 1-year deal to prove he was a guard, did it, got a big deal from Miami, and yeah, he's back now. But that's what you're talking about, Jamal, and this may be Bobby McCain. Exactly. I don't blame him a bit. Get every penny you can. For sure. You don't owe Washington anything, but for 1 year, I think he's a great signing. I'm
okay with every year you have a handful of guys who are here on 1-year prove-it deals. Because they're going to compete, they're not going to be guaranteed anything. It just means more depth. It means more competition. Like the whole I think a lot of people want to constantly build like Green Bay. You just keep drafting people and re-signing them and don't worry about free agency. Use free agency to backfill your roster. I mean, if you really look at how this team's being built right now, non-quarterback side, the other 50 positions, this is going to be a very deep roster of guys who can play quality minutes when they're out there. The depth we're going to see on the O-line we just talked about, that's going to be a huge... This might be one of the deepest O-lines in the league at this point. Maybe not the most elite, but one of the deepest. We're much deeper at wide receiver after this offseason. I think that's fair to say, too. They added a lot on the linebacking side. I think those later round picks are both going to be linebackers, it looks like now. The two guys who they drafted that were DNs, but now they're
Tony
both...
and
yeah.
Smith Williams.
Yeah. I think they're both kind of going to be converted to linebacker, is what it feels like. I think this team is building a very deep roster. And to do that year in and year out, you're going to have to just get these guys after the draft on one-year deals every once in a while, and that's fine.
Well, I'll tell you what, considering we didn't have an offseason to speak of last year, I think this year is the year that Ron Rivera is really going to turn the roster over.
Yeah.
To bring in his guys. And so, guys you bring in Mccain.
Right.
And, legacy players who've been around for a while under the Jay Gruden, like Troy Apke. DeShazier Everett, because I mentioned them before. Those guys need to be nervous because they didn't get brought here by Ron Rivera.
Sure.
And he's drafting safeties. He's bringing free agents in. These old linemen, he's bringing in Leno, and he drafted Cosme and Sadiq Charles. Some of these guys, like the John Christians of the world, are not going to be here.
No. But you know what? That's fine. And I'm actually happy he took a year of, let's see what this roster has.
I think it was not that he wanted to do that. He had no choice but to do that.
Partially, yes. But I think it benefits you to just kind of look and see what you got before you go and shop for all new ingredients. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, I think it's going to be very good. I think that they're building a very deep roster. For whatever happens at quarterback. We don't know there.
A lot of times when teams, this sort of goes true for across a lot of sports, but when you lose a really, truly elite player, the team goes into tailspin a little bit. The New York Yankees lose Derek Jeter. What happened? They had a bunch of down years. Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, retired. The Lakers went into the toilet bowl. You have... Sure. The Colts, after they lost Peyton Manning, were a disaster for a while. And what happened 10 years ago? Well, we lost.
I ain't mean to cut you off for your point because you was making a good point. I was just saying only for a year with them because they got lucky and got Andrew Luck to
Yeah, they did the suck for luck.
They got lucky, but the point is, yeah. And so Washington lost an elite talent and an all-time great Redskin in Sean Taylor, and it has taken them forever to replace that capability.
Yeah.
And they never really did. They've never really had a true free safety since Sean Taylor died.
No.
And they're still searching. And again, that happens a lot. It took just, off the top of my head, it took the Lakers 5 or 6 years to get back after Kobe retired, for example.
Yeah. And, different sports is obviously
different. Well, you can look at the Broncos. The Broncos lost John Elway to retirement, and they went into the tank for a bunch of years.
Right.
Just off it happened to Washington. You lose Joe Gibbs. What happens? And you get a weird owner, and you don't have a quarterback. And all of a sudden, we've been bad for 20 years.
Yeah. Look.
So that's the safety position in Washington, sort of as a microcosm of the larger point. That's what's happened at safety.
Right. At this point, they now have a legitimate cover 3 free safety, like you said. They have a good in-the-box safety in Landon Collins and Cam Curl, who's kind of more of a balanced-out strong safety.
I think Cam Curl's going to force Landon Collins off the roster eventually.
I think eventually he will. I don't think it'll be this year because, those contract numbers don't make sense.
No.
But if you have a high cover 3 safety or free safety like that, you can play Collins how he needs to be played. You know, to make Landon Collins work, you need a free safety who's going to just take care of the over-the-top stuff. And so that's a good thing. We have that now. All right, we should move on and talk about our first position group breakdown this, whole offseason. We are going to start with quarterbacks. Steve, you wrote up the 4 quarterbacks on the roster. I think everyone kind of knows these names. This is the easy one. Even the most casual fans should know our quarterback situation. So let us start from the bottom, guys. Let's start with Steve Montez, the quarterback out of Colorado, been on the practice squad. Some people were like really a little high on him in the draft. I remember. I think you and I both liked some of what we saw from him.
I liked him. Yeah. Well, first of all, you're ignoring Jordan Ta'amu.
Jordan Ta'amu, who's here on a weekend pass.
I'm sure Jordan Ta'amu will probably not be on the roster. Steven Montez, I liked him in college.
Yeah.
I don't think he was an elite talent, but he's got a strong arm. I think he's truly is a classic developmental prospect who needs to get used to the pro game a little bit, and that's exactly what they're doing with him. Whether or not he can really have the ability to read the field at the level of starting quarterback, probably unlikely, but remains to be seen. But I like Steven Montez. He's a guy. Every team needs a Steven Montez type of player,
right?
In their quarterback room.
Yes, he's more athletic than the rest. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, but he's not an uber athletic guy.
No, but you
By
need somebody who can simulate that in practice, right? You always need one guy who can at least somewhat pretend to be the athletic quarterback.
Yeah, he's not Michael Vick by any means, but yeah, he's more mobile than Ryan Fitzpatrick at least.
Yeah, and the other thing about Montez is there was some talk at the beginning of the offseason they might move him into a hybrid role of playing some tight end and fullback, in the season. So that's something to watch for.
Man, people need to relax. I ain't gonna lie to you. This is just hilarious to hear, and I've been hearing it for quite some time now, and I just think it's a joke. It's only gonna be sometimes people don't understand. There's always just gonna be one of its own. Like it's gonna be one of a kind, in a lot of instances in life. For example, the craze behind, and I will just give me some time. I am going to go back to Steven Montez, but the craze about finding this young, smart, offensive savvy head coach like Sean McVay, trying to find that mold and stuff like that. People went on a craze. Green Bay, Arizona. I think Arizona twice, to be honest with you. With Steve Wilkes at one point. They're trying to find these young, smart offensive coaches, and even though Wilkes I think was defense, but my point is they're trying to find these young, smart coaches, so they can have Kingsbury, and then they're trying to put that image out there for promotion for their teams, but also hoping that they strike gold. But there's only one Sean McVay, and then you circle back to the player side. There's only one Taysom Hill. There's only one, bro. There's never going to be another Taysom Hill who's a quarterback that can do as much as he can for offense and for special teams, because he returned kickoffs for New Orleans as well. You're not going to get another Taysom Hill who can perform to that level and perform that effectively and be that type of playmaker and X factor for your offense. And I think it's funny that they're doing that. The talk even existed with Steven Montez. I don't care what he looked like in college. You're not going to get he's not touching that type of talent that Taysom Hill has. Why are you entertaining that? And that he's a quarterback. Yeah. Leave it at that. And I think it's just funny that people are trying to find these type of players when it's only ever going to be one of a kind for certain things. You're not going to find that next Sean McVay. You're not going to find that next Taysom Hill, no matter how hard you try. Quarterbacks are quarterbacks, and you need to look into and find a goddamn tight end who can do what you want him to do. Stop looking at a quarterback and hoping that he can be your X factor. That ain't going to happen.
Well, first of all, Taysom Hill is what Tim Tebow could have been if Tim Tebow had been smart. But regardless, I'm assuming this Montez talk at fullback, whatever, is just Twitter garbage.
I hope it is.
Well, I think it was rumored that Rivera had said something.
So it's Twitter garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Jamal, I 100% agree. Jamal is preaching the truth here. It's ridiculous. Steven Montez is a quarterback. He doesn't have a history of being a running back or anything like that. He is a quarterback, period.
Yeah.
And he's a developmental quarterback, and I'm all for having a developmental quarterback. Maybe someday he can be the number 2 guy and fill in when our starter's hurt. I think that's what you do with Steven Montez. In case people haven't understood this, there's never been another Taysom Hill that I can think of in the history of the modern NFL, other than what Tebow could have done and did in very rare instance. Those 2 guys are unique. You're not going to find Taysom Hill again.
No. I mean, look, the NFL's littered with guys who were these unique weapons, but,
none of them did it well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like Brian Mitchell played quarterback in a body bag game, and that's the next one I can think of anyone who did anything like this.
That's not the same thing.
It's not.
Think about what the Jaguars did when they drafted Denard Robinson. They called him an offensive weapon. Right. And while he was, I wouldn't say he was extremely successful, but he was in here and he made a few plays here and there, but he never lasted. Like he was not, it wasn't sustainable. And no matter how hard you try, Denard Robinson, I don't know what he could have been if he just played strictly quarterback. Obviously, he was smart enough to give that offensive weapon a try because of how versatile he was at Michigan. But it's no matter how hard you try, you need to sometimes just understand who these type of players are, and forcing it to hope you strike gold in a unique way. It just doesn't come about. You just have to see it in certain players. They saw it in Taysom, and then the Rams saw it in Sean McVay. So did Chris Cooley, because he was banging on the table for Sean, saying he was going to be successful. But you only see it in certain people, and you strike gold in certain people. You're not going to just keep just searching around hoping you can find a clone. That just doesn't happen. And Arizona's going to pay dearly.
I got a better comp of somebody who's like that, but was a rare one of one. Antoine Randall, who was a wide receiver who could also throw the ball pretty hard.
Yeah, but listen, that's not a good comp, though, Alex, because he was a he was a college quarterback. He was a wide receiver, period. They rarely, if ever, they used him on a couple gadget plays. We're talking Taysom Hill is a guy who can legitimately play quarterback and a bunch of other things. And it sounds like that's what you guys are saying, that the Twitter Illuminati are saying about Montez. And Jamal's right. That's exactly just not. That's just crazy. I'm tired of this topic because this is dumb. So let's move on.
Okay. You guys want to talk about Kyle Allen next?
Sure. Kyle Allen. Kyle Allen is a guy that Ron Rivera clearly loves.
Yes.
Now, he has an injury history, and that's part of his big problem. But he's got legitimate starting experience. I don't think he's an elite franchise quarterback. He's never going to be that. I think he's sort of a classic backup quarterback who can play when he has to, but you can't count on him. He's not going to stay healthy.
No. I think that we need to see how he comes back from this leg injury. He's not fully back yet. Luckily, he's cheap. He's costing them less than $1 million right now. Like you said, Rivera does love him. And there's stuff to build around there. I think you can build a offense around what he does, but I don't know if he's ever going to have every tool you need for a true starter. He can run and he can pick up first downs. He can probably play, if you put him in a West Coast style system, he can dink and dunk pretty well. I don't know if
he doesn't have a big, strong arm.
No, I think he's got a very average arm.
Yeah, that's his major downfall. He's a smart enough guy,
yeah,
but he's got a mediocre arm by NFL standards. And you combine that with a negative injury history, and that's why I think Ron's a smart guy, obviously.
Right.
And I don't think that he's expecting Kyle Allen to come in here and be the quarterback of the future. And as is evident by the fact that Ron tried to bring Matthew Stafford to Washington.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, Kyle Allen isn't. I'm saying I feel like out of all the quarterbacks, the top 3 quarterbacks, this is excluding Steven for obvious reasons, but out of the top 3, he's the one on the chopping block here. That's potentially on the chopping block. Obviously, the injury played a significant factor in this because you never knew what you was going to get from Heineke if Allen didn't get hurt. But at the same time, now that we know what happened, we know what Heineke looked like when he came in for his two games. Yeah, 2 games.
Yeah, game and a half.
Game and a half. Now you got competition in preseason and training camp, but then at the same time, odds are like it's ideal for most teams to keep 2 quarterbacks. And if Heineke with his new deal, even though it's not a lot, but it's enough to keep him on the roster compared to Allen. I think Allen is going to be the one that has to not make any mistakes this offseason. Like he can't get on the coach's bad side and have them raise question marks about where he is as a player, because he's the one who's gonna end up getting cut at the end.
Yeah, I mean, contract-wise, Heineke's got a $4.75 million contract with a cap hit of $1.57 million this year, as compared to Allen, who's on a 1-year min-salary deal. So, yeah, from that perspective, Heineke's problem is if there's a guy with a worse injury history than Allen, it's Heineke.
Right.
That man cannot stay healthy. Our buddy Robbie Duncan's been singing the praises of Taylor Heineke since we've known him. Who played with him at Old Dominion. I think Taylor's a gamer, obviously, and I don't think his performance in that playoff game had anything to do with they just didn't have game film on him or whatever. He legitimately came in and looked like he could play a quarterback in the NFL, I thought. But again, you can't count on him to stay healthy because he's had multiple concussions. He's had all kinds of problems. And so while I agree, I think one of Allen and Heineke are going to be gone because I think they keep Montez on as a developmental prospect. I think Heineke ought to be in the lead, but I'm a little bit leery of him just because I know he's going to get hurt again.
I think it's a weird thing that happens in the NFL, that there are these guys who just can't stay healthy, and both these guys have that issue. It seems like, you guys are probably right that one of them is going to be gone. If you're looking at, and I did this exercise for myself. If you were to look at these guys and say who's got the most upside, though, just based on how they played last year, it's gonna be Heineke. Just he plays kind of like more of a Tony Romo-esque. He's scrambling, trying to make big plays with his arm, throw the ball downfield. He's always whereas I think Allen was more of like the dink and dunk playing it safe guy. Heineke was looking for bigger plays, which is where I think they want to go with this offense this year. And so that's why I would give him an edge. But
a part of it is, I think, how conservative or aggressive do you want to be with your roster management if you're Ron Rivera? Because Taylor Heineke's barely played at all.
Sure.
He's appeared in, I think it was 8 games. By the way, we're doing in case you guys, we didn't say this, we're doing a companion written position group breakdown piece each week.
Right.
And the written piece will come out before the show every week. So our quarterback piece, I wrote it this week, but we're switching it up every week. I wrote it this week. But Kyle Allen has played, and I think you have a better handle on what he can do. Heineke's problem, while I agree with your observations about how he looked, the conservative thing would be to take Allen just because you kind of know what you got.
Sure.
But I don't know if Ron Rivera is all that conservative when it comes to roster management. He's made a bunch of bold moves, so I don't know if he believes that.
Well, I think there's a whole different thought process in terms of how you manage your quarterbacks versus even the rest of the roster too.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to expect from those two guys. I think it'll be one of the more interesting roster battles to watch out for, because one thing I'd be willing to bet money that mattered to me on is this team not keeping 4 quarterbacks on the roster.
Oh, yeah, of course not.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think
Probably not. One thing we didn't mention, though, I mean, with Kyle Allen still recovering, they could, in theory, start him off on IR or something. Or
the pup list or something.
Stash him.
Yeah, they could do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the elephant in the room, obviously, is Ryan Fitzpatrick,
right?
Who is going to at least day one he's the day one starter. Whether or not he stays in that role all year remains to be seen, but he's going to be the starter to start the season, I think. It's like a tale of two cities, to quote a famous book. with him, because at some point you get Fitzmagic, and the other times you get this Fitzpatrick dude who looks like he doesn't belong on a football field.
Yeah.
That's been his problem his entire career. So who are we going to get here? I mean, it might vary from week to week.
Well, it usually starts out for him very good, and then, about a quarter through the season, things fall apart.
That is,
Or like game by game, it'll fall apart.
Yeah.
that is fair.
What were you gonna say, Jamal?
No, I was about to agree with you. I was like, that's fair. Like he's the front runner.
Right.
And it kind of works against him because it's a lot of hype behind him because he's earned it, and like he starts off good. He has these amazing numbers, and his team can get these high scoring wins. And then all of a sudden, you see these weeks where he's like 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 50% completion. You're like, what the hell is going on with Fitzpatrick? And those are the type of things that you get with Fitz. It's just on a week by week basis with him. And I think the main concern, or not even, I wouldn't even say concern. Like I shouldn't even say main. I think it's a sneaky storyline that has already been floated around, right? The sneaky storyline is how many games is Fitzpatrick getting before is he going to start that full 17 game schedule? And a lot of people are not sure, or plenty of people are not sure that he's even going to be good enough to finish the whole season with Washington. This isn't injury related. This is production related. And personally, I think that he's past that point in his career, personally speaking. I think he's past that point in his career where he's too inconsistent to not start 17 games. I think he is mature and smart enough, and he's grown and developed as a quarterback where he's at least competent on a week by week basis. I think he's past that point where we've had that narrative of Fitzpatrick, the negative narrative of Fitzpatrick. But I'm not going to knock anybody who still questions it because it did exist. Probably at least 2-3 years ago, like it existed. So I'm not going to knock anybody for thinking like that, but I personally think he's past that point, and he's playing the best football of his career the last couple years since he's been like his tail end in Tampa going into Miami, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. I have confidence that Fitzpatrick is going to be good enough. The question is, like, how good is he of a quarterback? Can he get us to a 3 seed? Talking about division. Can he get it to a 3 seed, or are we going to be fighting for that fourth seed / wild card position at the same time with Fitzpatrick? Like, how good of a quarterback is he?
Well, so it is a tough question. I think it starts with a different kind of way of looking at it. Fitzpatrick probably has the highest floor of any of these guys, but I think it's fair to say his ceiling and his floor are very close together. He is living in like maybe not even a 1-floor ranch house, like that floor and ceiling are right next to each other with him. And he's probably in the 20 to 25 range in terms of quarterbacks in the league. Somewhere around there.
I would say 16, 20 now.
I don't even think it's fair to compare Ryan Fitzpatrick to Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke. Ryan Fitzpatrick's a 16-year veteran with a history, and Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke are just trying to make it.
Yeah, but he's a 16-year veteran who spent much of his career as a backup, too, for a reason.
I agree, but they're just in totally different situations,
Sure.
Now, I will say this, and certainly he's been up and down. I think he actually has a pretty high ceiling. His problem, to me, in my view, he's just very inconsistent. His floor is pretty low, and his ceiling is pretty high. There was a time in Tampa there briefly that he looked like an MVP candidate.
I think game by game, you're right, but I'm talking more like over the course of the full season.
Well, that's been his problem.
Yeah.
I will say this, like in Miami, last year, he would put up pretty good numbers. 68.5% completion percentage.
Right.
His interception percentage is only 3%, which is, certainly higher than like an Alex Smith who doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. But by his standards, that's pretty low. He's throwing the ball, he's chucking the ball downfield. I think one thing that works in his so he played pretty well in Miami. One thing that works well in his favor here is that Washington doesn't have Tua hanging around in the wings, the first round draft pick waiting to play. Washington's just trying to get by with Fitzpatrick. So from that respect, they don't really have anybody that they want to develop necessarily, or that they feel the need to because has a high draft pick. He was a high draft pick, so. Fitzpatrick may make it through the whole year. They may just stick it out with him.
Well, I mean, he's 38, 39, so he might not make it just because, guys at that point, wear and tear can knock him out for a few games. Okay, so give me the, what do you think? Do you think he'll play 13 games realistically? Because odds are at his age, he can't put up 17 games. In my opinion. Or he'll get pulled for, one of those bad games, and they'll pull him out for a while.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of starts,
yeah,
I'm going to maybe say 15.
15?
I think he's going to make the most of the year, yeah.
Okay. Jamal, what about you? You think he makes it?
Like I said, yeah, I think we're not speaking injury here, so I'm thinking, I think 17. Think he's playing on 17?
See, I think injury is going to come into it.
Oh, so you're talking about including injury.
Yeah, I'm including injury.
Oh, I mean, still for me, I still say 17. I don't really remember Fitzpatrick ever having an injury history, so I'm going to stick with 17.
No, I went with 15 just to give myself a one-game hedge. But the other thing is, with the 17-game schedule, and I know we're not talking schedule, that we'll save for another day, but I'm looking at that Week 13 game against the Raiders, the away game in Vegas before you face 5 straight division opponents. I'm thinking that may be a classic NBA-style rest your starters game.
That might be a thing that starts happening in the NFL.
I saw somebody on ESPN. I can't remember who it was. Somebody on Mike Greenberg's show in the morning. I give credit to him for that, whoever it was. But for Washington, it's that week. It's a non-conference opponent away game before heading into the 5-game stretch of division games, which is just crazy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking that may be a game where you want to sit Fitzpatrick. And I'm throwing another game in there for injury. That's how I got to 15.
You know what? It's that when we do talk schedule, that's an interesting topic to kind of bring up. I think that's going to be a factor. But really, this whole quarterback discussion, or this offseason is going to come down to Kyle Allen versus Taylor Heineke. Who gets that backup spot? What do they show in preseason? Do they show enough where you think maybe they could do something for this team, or are they just going to be backups? That's what we're going to be looking for, I think.
Well, Alex, you brought up a good point that it didn't really occur to me for some reason, but it seems like a pretty good possibility to think that Kyle Allen may be stashed on PUP for 8 weeks just so they don't have to make that decision right now.
Yeah, I think that's safe. Look, that's an old school thing to do, stash guys on IR, but teams still do it.
And what in the world happened to his ankle that he's still limping around after all these months later?
It was a pretty bad break,
clearly.
I heard.
Yeah, clearly it was.
Yeah. Guys, we're at time, so there's two things I want to bring up real quick. If you didn't see it, the football team did a little thing at RFK Stadium. Everyone knows they're tearing it down in 2022. So they had all the Super Bowl trophies. They had Doc and Rippin, and I believe Theismann was there, or it might have been Doug. I think it was Doug, actually. And they were all just doing little snippets, giving RFK memories, that kind of thing, saying goodbye to the stadium. So credit to them for doing that, because I am the one who suggested that to Jason Wright. So I'm going to say that's me. That was all me who did it. Yes.
Those of us who are old enough to have remembered RFK, which is not Jamal, you weren't around for, right? You weren't realistically around for RFK.
I mean, I was probably about 6 or 7 when they transitioned to FedEx.
Okay. I've said on the show before that my greatest childhood memory is the 1982 NFC Championship game at RFK Stadium with my dad. It was a really special place. Nobody cared that it was a dump. It was a dump back then.
Right.
Nobody cared, and there was a lot of great memories there. And I, for one, am really sad to see it go. And the Alex Zeus event that happened seemed kind of chintzy to me. I didn't see much of it. I guess it was on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah,
but
it wasn't a big thing.
I would like to see a bigger, better event instead of just throwing 3 guys in an empty stadium and in front of a camera and taking a couple pictures. Let's have a preseason game there.
Yeah,
at RFK Stadium.
I'm with you there in spirit. I worry about, is it safe to even have more than like 50 people in the stadium?
Who cares?
Yeah.
So what? Have 50 people.
Yeah.
I think you've got some time. Get the stadium in good enough shape to have a crowd there.
Yeah.
For one, you're not talking about a season. We're talking about 3 hours of our time.
Yeah. I would love to see them do something like that.
It's a great place, and I miss it. FedEx has none of the charm of RFK Stadium.
In terms of architecture and style, that sloping roof that just created such a sound wave when the fans would get going, and that's what FedEx misses. Is you always hear stories of how loud it could get in there, and it would rival what Seattle has today. It would rival what Arrowhead is in Kansas City. It
was loud, but it was also that the fans created that.
Yeah,
because I was there. We had season tickets at RFK Stadium a couple years, and it was the fans that created that. They were loud, they were excited. There's just none of that with Washington for reasons that we have spent hours and hours and hours talking about, and I'm not going to rehash it all here. I would hope to think that Washington will do more than what they did this week. Apparently,
I hope so
haven't
too.
Seen any of it.
In the big picture, I didn't get to go to any Redskins games there. I was too young. My dad didn't want to take kids to football games. My dad hated going to football games in person. So
I've been to a lot of games at RFK Stadium, and it was a very, very special place.
I got to go to a lot of baseball games there, and I actually did go to a college football game when they played a bowl game there one year. So I did get to see some football there, but it was a great stadium to watch events.
But look, the past is over.
Yep.
We hope to think that Washington will make a better future for itself, and so we don't have to live in these past days and past glories that happened 30 years ago. We definitely want this team to progress and become great again in the future. So our kids will see. My kids aren't Redskins fans. Your guys' kids, maybe, will see FedEx Field or the follow-on as a great stadium.
Yeah. Well, FedEx Field won't be around much longer.
Well, they've got 6 or 7 more years. Good things can happen still. So
let me touch on the very last thing, because we had some sad news this week that Colt Brennan, former Washington Redskin quarterback, the legendary Cult of Colt, Colt Brennan, passed away. He'd been dealing with some drug addiction issues and was in rehab and seems to have passed away while in rehab. Very sad. If you guys don't know what happened to him after he left here, he got in some car accidents. He developed a pill addiction. Just really tragic story overall. He tried to have a comeback with the Arena Football League at one point, was basically told, if you take one more hit to the head, you're going to be done. So he couldn't come back. Tough life, man. And he and I are about the same age. I think he was only 37. Yeah. So that's tough to
rest
hear.
in peace. It's tragic.
Yeah.
What happened to him? Yeah, read up on his story if you want to out there, because like Alex said, it's a car accident, and like a very serious, almost died kind of a car accident. And it's also sort of the tragedy of prescription pills, painkillers, which have addicted and killed so many people out there.
Big problem in this country.
It's a real tragedy what happened to Colt. So rest in peace. And on behalf of the Hogsty, to his family, our condolences.
I doubt any of them listen, but if you do, our condolences for your loss, man. That's too soon to lose anybody. So
gone too soon.
Yeah. All right, guys. On that note, I guess we're going to go ahead and end the show. We will catch you all next week as we're what do we do next week? Tight ends next week. Oh, that'll be a fun one. We can gush more about Reyes. So we will do that next week, guys. Later.
Peace.